I'll never forget the look on my son's face that morning, the smug smile, the quiet confidence in his eyes. We were sitting across from each other in the lawyer's office, sunlight spilling through the blinds like strips of truth waiting to be revealed. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from disbelief that my own child, the boy I raised, was about to betray me. "Let's just get this over with," he said, sliding a stack of papers toward me. "It's what Dad would have wanted." His tone was sharp, impatient, as if I was some obstacle standing between him and his prize. His wife sat beside him, arms crossed, a smirk dancing on her lips. My daughter, Lily, was quiet in the corner, her eyes full of worry. She knew something wasn't right, but even she didn't know how far her brother had gone. I looked down at the documents, property transfer papers, my late husband's estate, our home, his business shares, even the savings account, all listed neatly. And all of it, in my son's name. I felt my throat tighten. "You're asking me to sign everything over to you." He shrugged. "It's not asking, Mom. It's simplifying things. You're old. It's better if I handle it." That word old cut deeper than I expected. I raised him, worked night shifts, and kept this family alive when we had nothing. And now here he was, treating me like a burden standing in the way of his inheritance. The lawyer cleared his throat, eyes flicking between us. "Before you sign anything," he said slowly, "I need to disclose something important." My son sighed, already irritated. "What now?" The lawyer turned to me. "Mrs. Carter, your late husband appointed someone very specific as the executor of his estate, meaning the only person authorized to approve any transfers or decisions." My son leaned forward, eager. "Yes, that would be me, right?" The lawyer shook his head. "No," he said quietly, "it's your mother." For a moment, time froze, the smirk vanished from my son's face, his jaw tightened, and the papers he'd pushed toward me suddenly looked meaningless. That was the first time I saw fear in his eyes, and I knew this was just the beginning. Before everything fell apart, we looked like a perfect family from the outside. We lived in a modest but beautiful two-story home that my husband, Richard, and I built together 40 years ago. He was a man of principles, the kind who believed in hard work, honesty, and family above all else. He started his own small construction company, and together we built not just houses, but a life. Our son, Daniel, was our firstborn. From the moment he came into this world, Richard had stars in his eyes. He wanted Daniel to take over the business someday, to carry the family name forward, and for years it looked like he would. Daniel was ambitious, sharp-tongued, and hungry for success, maybe too hungry. Our daughter, Lily, came 4 years later. She was softer, calmer, the kind of child who'd bring me tea when I was tired and sit beside me without saying a word. Where Daniel saw the world as a competition, Lily saw it as a place to care for others. When Richard passed away, it felt like someone had pulled the foundation from beneath us. I was lost, drifting through grief, and my children. Well, they coped in very different ways. Lily stayed close, visiting me every other day, making sure I ate, helping with the house. But Daniel, he became distant. He said he was handling things, managing the business, settling the accounts. At first, I believed him. He'd always been confident and decisive, and I trusted him completely. But slowly, I started noticing changes. He stopped calling unless he needed something signed. He avoided family dinners. When I'd ask about the business, he'd brush me off with, "It's complicated, Mom. You wouldn't understand." I didn't realize then that complicated meant secretive. One afternoon, I found a letter from the bank, something about a joint account withdrawal I didn't authorize. I brought it up to Daniel, but he laughed it off. "Mom, I just moved the funds around for tax reasons. You know how Dad handled these things." I wanted to believe him. I needed to. Losing Richard had already broken me once. I couldn't bear the thought that my son, my own flesh and blood, might be lying to me. But deep down, something didn't feel right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Richard had known this day would come. The envelope was yellowed with age, edges slightly curled. In Richard's neat handwriting, it read, "To my beloved Mary, open this only if you feel lost." My hands trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a letter, just 2 pages long, written in his familiar, careful tone. "Mary, if you're reading this, I'm no longer by your side. I know how much you trust people, especially Daniel. But please, don't sign anything without speaking to Martin first. He's our lawyer, and he knows exactly what to do. I've made arrangements that will protect you. Trust the process, not the pressure. I felt my chest tighten. Richard knew. Somehow, even before he passed, he knew Daniel might put money before family. I folded the letter carefully, as if holding a piece of him in my hands. I didn't understand what he meant by arrangements, but his words gave me strength. For the first time since his death, I felt like I wasn't alone. The next morning, I decided to visit Martin, our family lawyer for over 20 years. When I arrived at his office, he greeted me with the same warm smile he'd had since Richard's early days in business. "Mary," he said gently, "I wondered when you'd come." His tone told me he already knew something I didn't. He poured me tea, then sat across from me. "Your husband was a smart man. Before he passed, he updated his will very quietly. He didn't want Daniel or anyone else to know the details until the time was right." I blinked, shocked. "He changed the will." Martin nodded. "Yes, and he appointed an executor, someone he trusted to carry out his wishes without interference." I leaned forward. "Who?" He smiled faintly. "You, Mary. You're the executor." I froze. My throat went dry. "Me?" He nodded again. "Yes. Richard believed you'd protect what he built not for yourself, but for what's right." I didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified. Being the executor meant responsibility, power, and confrontation. If Daniel found out, I knew he'd see it as an attack, not trust, and he would find out sooner than I expected. He didn't even knock. I was in the kitchen, watering my plants, when the front door burst open. "Mom," Daniel's voice boomed through the hallway. "Why haven't you signed the transfer documents yet?" I turned, startled. "Transfer documents? What are you talking about?" He waved the folder in the air. "The business, the house, all the assets Dad left behind. It's better if I consolidate them under my name. It'll make management easier." His tone wasn't asking, it was commanding. I wiped my hands and tried to stay calm. "Daniel, your father's only been gone for 6 months. I'm not ready to make those decisions yet." He rolled his eyes. "Mom, it's not emotional, it's practical. You don't understand the financial side of things I do. If you don't act fast, taxes will eat up everything Dad worked for." I took the folder and glanced at the top page. Legal terms, fine print, signatures but not mine. I noticed something strange. Richard's signature looked off, too neat, too recent. "Daniel." I said slowly, "When was this signed?" He avoided my eyes. "It's just a copy. The originals are with the lawyer." But I could hear the defensiveness in his voice. Something was wrong. Then his wife, Clara, stepped inside without greeting me. "Honestly, Mary," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern, "we're only trying to make sure you don't do something foolish. You're not getting any younger." That word again, old, as if I'd become invisible overnight. I wanted to scream, but I swallowed my anger. "I'm not signing anything," I said firmly, handing the papers back. Daniel's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," I replied softly, "but at least it'll be my mistake." He glared at me for a long moment, then turned to Clara. "Let's go, she'll regret it." As they left, Lily came out from the hallway. She must have overheard everything. Her eyes were wide, filled with worry. "Mom," she whispered, "you can't trust him. I heard him on the phone yesterday, talking about selling Dad's land." I froze. "Selling it, but he doesn't have authority to do that." She nodded. "That's what I thought too." I sat at the dining table long after midnight, staring at the papers in front of me. My name, Mary Carter, written in neat blue ink. Except it wasn't mine. The signature curved wrong, the spacing was off. Someone had practiced this, someone close. My heart pounded as I flipped through the documents. They weren't just old business forms, they were transfer deeds. If these were submitted, Daniel would own everything. The house, the company, the land, even Richard's old savings bonds. I felt dizzy. Betrayal isn't like a stab in the back, it's slower. It's when your hands start shaking, when your heart refuses to believe what your eyes are showing you. The next morning, I confronted Daniel over the phone. "Daniel," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I found papers with my forged signature. Do you know anything about that?" He laughed. "Mom," Don't start with your paranoia again. Maybe you forgot you signed them. I did no such thing, I said sharply. His tone turned cold. You're making a scene over nothing. If you're not careful, you'll mess up all of Dad's plans. Your father's plans, I whispered. Or yours. He hung up just like that. Lily came over later that day. When she saw my face, she didn't ask, she just hugged me. He's going too far, she said softly. You can't face this alone. I nodded, but I was torn. I still loved him. No matter how cruel he sounded, he was my son, the baby I once rocked to sleep. How could that same child forge his mother's name for money? That night, I took Richard's letter and read it again under the lamp. The line echoed in my head, trust the process, not the pressure. So that's what I would do. I decided to visit Martin again quietly without telling anyone. My pulse quickened. Daniel was here. I asked, trying to hide the panic in my voice. The secretary nodded. Yes, about an hour ago. He said you authorized him to collect certain documents. I told him he'd need your written consent first, and he left looking frustrated. I thanked her, forcing a smile, and went straight into Martin's office. He was already waiting for me. Mary, he said gravely, I was about to call you. Daniel's been asking too many questions lately. I think he suspects there's more to Richard's will than he knows. I sighed. He's not just asking questions anymore. He's forging signatures, Martin. Martin's expression darkened. Then we need to protect you immediately. I'll make sure no transactions or transfers go through without your explicit permission. Everything must come through you. You're the executor. That word still made my stomach twist. Executor. I hadn't told anyone, not even Lily, that I was the one Richard entrusted. I wanted to keep the peace for as long as possible, but peace was slipping away fast. Later that afternoon, as I was coming home from the lawyer's office, I saw Daniel's car parked outside my house. He and Clara were standing by the porch, arguing. I stayed hidden behind the garden wall, listening. Clara hissed, You said she'd sign. You promised this would be done by now. Daniel snapped, She's being stubborn. But once I get Martin to hand over the paperwork, she won't have a choice. Clara crossed her arms. You're wasting time. That house could sell for a fortune. I'm not living in this cramped apartment forever. My breath caught. My house, my home, was just a property listing to them. I stepped out from behind the wall. Looking for something, they both froze. Daniel stammered, Mom, I was just talking about selling the house I still live in. I interrupted. His eyes flickered with guilt, then arrogance. It's not what you think. I looked at Clara. Then what is it, dear? A business discussion or a family betrayal? She turned away, avoiding my gaze. Daniel muttered, You're being dramatic, Mom. Dramatic. I whispered, You forged my name. He flinched. You can't prove that. Oh, but I could, and I would. When the bank manager called, his tone was cautious. Mrs. Carter, we noticed an attempt to transfer $60,000 from your joint account. The request was denied because the signature didn't match. Would you like to confirm it wasn't you? My knees nearly gave out. No, I said, it definitely wasn't me. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. It wasn't just about money anymore, it was about power, control, and manipulation. Daniel wasn't waiting for me to die. He was trying to erase me while I was still alive. That evening, Lily came over with groceries. I told her everything, the forged signatures, the attempted withdrawal, the confrontation. She listened quietly, her hands trembling as she unpacked the bags. Mom, she finally said, We can't keep this quiet anymore. You have to protect yourself legally. He won't stop. I nodded. I already spoke to Martin. He's preparing something, but I need to see how far Daniel will go. She frowned. You're still hoping he'll realize what he's doing. I sighed. He's my son, Lily. I can't stop hoping. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind made me jump. I kept thinking, if Daniel could forge documents, what else could he do? At around midnight, I heard a car pull up outside. I peeked through the curtain. Daniel was standing there in the driveway, phone pressed to his ear. He didn't see me. Yeah, he said to whoever was on the line, She's still stubborn, but once she signs tomorrow, it's done. I'll make sure of it. I stepped back, my heart pounding. What was he planning for tomorrow? The next morning, my question was answered. Daniel showed up unannounced, this time wearing a forced smile. "Mom," he said lightly, "I want to take you somewhere. It's time to finalize Dad's estate. Martin's expecting us." I hesitated. Something felt off, but Martin had mentioned a meeting soon. Maybe this was it. I decided to go, but quietly, I called Martin's office from my phone as we drove. When his secretary answered, I whispered, "Is Martin expecting me?" Her answer froze my blood. "No, Mrs. Carter. There's no meeting scheduled today." Daniel's tone was strangely calm as we drove. The air in the car felt heavy, thick with unspoken tension. I sat in the passenger seat, my hands clenched around my purse, trying to hide my unease. He talked casually, as if nothing was wrong. "You know, Mom, Dad's company is doing great now that I'm handling things. You'll be proud of how I'm managing it." I stared out the window. "That's good, Daniel. I just hope you're managing it honestly." He chuckled a low, humorless sound. Always the suspicious one. My phone buzzed quietly in my bag. It was a text from Martin. "Don't sign anything. I'll be there soon." My pulse quickened. He knew. Somehow, Martin knew what Daniel was up to. The car stopped in front of a small office building downtown, not Martin's office, but another firm entirely. "This doesn't look familiar," I said. Daniel smiled, a little too confidently. "Martin's busy today. His partner is handling things. We just need to finalize a few documents." His words felt rehearsed. I stepped out of the car slowly, my stomach tightening with dread. Inside, a young assistant greeted us and led us to a conference room. There was already a folder on the table. Daniel gestured for me to sit. "Here it is, just paperwork to wrap up Dad's estate." I opened the folder, page after page of legal text. My eyes caught the title line, "Full Property and Asset Transfer Agreement." I looked up at him. "You said this was about finalizing the estate, not transferring everything." He shifted in his seat. "Mom, it's all the same. It's just to make sure everything runs smoothly." I leaned back. "Then why didn't Martin call me himself?" His smile faltered. "Because he's old-fashioned. I'm handling it now." Before I could respond, the door opened and in walked Martin. His expression was grim, funny. He said, walking straight to the table, "I didn't realize I'd been replaced." Daniel's face turned pale. The silence in that room could have cracked glass. Daniel looked like he wanted to vanish. Martin sat down, opened his briefcase, and calmly took out a stack of papers. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "your late husband anticipated something like this." He updated his will before he passed quietly and with clear instructions. Daniel interrupted, his voice sharp. "You can't just bring in a new will without telling the family. That's illegal." Martin didn't even flinch. "It's perfectly legal, and it was witnessed properly. Your father wanted things handled fairly, not greedily." Daniel's jaw clenched. "So what does it say?" Martin's eyes flicked toward me, then back to Daniel. "The will states that all property, financial accounts, and company shares remain under the estate until the executor deems fit for distribution." Daniel frowned. "Executor, that's me." Martin shook his head. "No, it's your mother." Daniel's face went blank. "What?" I felt my heart pounding as Martin continued. "Richard named Mary Carter as the sole executor. Only she has authority to make any financial or property-related decisions. That includes any transfers, sales, or modifications to the estate." Daniel turned to me, his voice shaking. "You knew about this." I met his eyes quietly. "Not until recently. But your father trusted me not because I wanted control, but because he knew I wouldn't misuse it." He stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. She can't handle this. She doesn't even know how to read half these documents." Martin's tone hardened. "Maybe not. But she knows honesty when she sees it, something you seem to have forgotten." Clara leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Are you saying my husband doesn't get anything?" Martin looked at her coolly. "Your husband gets what the executor approves. And considering the forgery and unauthorized transactions I've documented, he should be grateful if he avoids legal trouble." Daniel's face twisted with anger. "You can't prove anything." Martin opened another folder. "Actually, we can. Your mother brought me copies of the forged documents, and the bank provided surveillance footage from the attempted withdrawal." Daniel's hands tightened into fists. "You're framing me." I stood up slowly. "No, Daniel. You framed yourself the moment you forged my name. His chest rose and fell rapidly. He looked around the room, realizing there was no escape. Martin stayed calm, though the tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Daniel, you need to think carefully about what you're saying. Daniel's voice trembled, but his pride wouldn't let him stop. You think you've won. You think I won't fight this. I'll take this to court. I'll tell them Mom's manipulating the will. I stepped closer, my voice breaking but steady. Manipulating, you tried to steal from your own family, he sneered. I am this family. Without me, everything Dad built would have fallen apart. No, I said quietly, without you, maybe we could have grieved in peace. For a long moment, he didn't move. His arrogance cracked, and for the first time, I saw the fear behind his anger. Martin sighed, then turned to me. Mrs. Carter, I suggest we officially lock the estate. No further transactions, no access without your approval. I nodded, barely hearing him. My heart hurt too much. Daniel grabbed the documents, ripping a few in frustration. You'll regret this, Mom. You'll end up with nothing. That business needs me. Martin stood, his tone firm. Mr. Carter, please calm yourself. The authorities will review the forgery. You should consult a lawyer. Clara tugged at his arm. Daniel, stop it. Let's go. But he shook her off, glaring at me one last time. You're choosing Lily over me, aren't you? She's always been your favorite. I swallowed hard. I never had favorites, Daniel. I had a family, and you chose to break it. He stared at me for a moment, his face twisting between guilt and rage. Then he turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him so hard that the sound echoed through the hall. Silence filled the room again. Martin placed his hand gently on mine. You did the right thing, Mary, but this isn't over yet. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes, I know. Because deep down, I understood something chilling when a person like Daniel feels cornered. They don't give up quietly. And I had a feeling he wasn't done with his betrayal yet. I found it early the next morning, a plain white envelope, no name, just my address scrawled in Daniel's messy handwriting. For a second, I thought maybe it was an apology. Some small part of me still wanted to believe that the boy I'd raised hadn't completely vanished under all that greed. But when I opened it, my hope crumbled. Inside was a single sheet of paper. If you don't step down as executor, I'll make sure Lily loses everything too. You can't protect her forever. I sank into the chair, the letter trembling in my hands. He wasn't sorry. He was angry, desperate, even. That kind of anger could make a person dangerous. I called Martin right away. When he arrived, he read the note quietly and frowned. This is intimidation, he said. We could press charges. I shook my head. No, not yet. I need to know why he's doing this. There's something he's hiding, something bigger. Martin hesitated, then nodded. All right. But you should know Richard left more than just money in that will. There's a sealed addendum he asked me not to open until you were ready. My breath caught. An addendum. Yes, Martin said. Your husband wanted it read only if things turned hostile between you and Daniel. He must have known this might happen. I stared at the envelope Martin handed me. It was old, sealed with wax and marked, to be opened by Mary only, when truth becomes necessary. I broke the seal and unfolded the pages inside. Richard's voice came alive through his handwriting once more. Mary, if Daniel ever turns against you, know this: I built the company with 2 partners. I only ever told him about one. The second, Harold Price, still holds the controlling shares. Those shares are not part of the inheritance. They belong to you and Lily through a private trust I created years ago. If Daniel tries to take over, the trust will stop him. I wanted you to have the power to protect our legacy, not destroy it. I sat back, stunned. Richard had left me and Lily the true controlling stake. Daniel had no idea. Martin, I whispered, does he know about this trust? Martin shook his head, no, and judging by his behavior, he's about to find out the hard way. The courthouse smelled faintly of wood polish and tension. I sat beside Martin, clutching my handbag like a lifeline. Daniel was across the aisle with his lawyer, slick, confident, and pretending as if none of this was personal. When the judge entered, everyone rose. My knees felt weak, but I stood tall. I had Richard's words echoing in my mind. Trust the process, not the pressure. The hearing began. Daniel's lawyer started strong. Your Honor, my client simply wishes to ensure transparency in the distribution of his late father's estate. We believe Mrs. Carter has been misled and may not be acting with full understanding of her responsibilities. I clenched my jaw. Misled, that was rich, coming from the same man who forged my signature. Martin rose calmly. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Carter attempted to withdraw funds fraudulently and forged his mother's signature on multiple legal documents. Furthermore, we have proof of an undisclosed trust that secures the estate's controlling assets, a trust entirely separate from the contested will. The courtroom murmured. Daniel's lawyer tried to object, but Martin was prepared. He handed the judge the trust documents and the letter from Richard. The judge reviewed them carefully, eyes narrowing. So, the executor of this trust is Mrs. Carter? Yes, Your Honor, Martin replied, and by its terms, she has full legal authority over all major decisions regarding the estate and company. Daniel shot to his feet. That's impossible. She can't run a company. She doesn't even know how it works. The judge's gaze turned cold. Sit down, Mr. Carter. He sat, but the fury in his eyes didn't fade. I watched as realization slowly dawned on him. Everything he'd schemed for was slipping away. Then, something shifted in his expression. He leaned toward his lawyer, whispering urgently. The lawyer stood and said, Your Honor, my client would like to request a recess. There are matters he wishes to discuss privately. The judge agreed, and we stepped out into the hallway. Daniel approached me immediately. His tone was low, bitter. You're ruining everything, Mom. You think this makes you righteous. No, Daniel, I said softly. It makes me your mother, the one trying to save you from destroying yourself. He scoffed. Save me? You're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing your father's memory. I said sharply. His expression faltered for a second, but only for a second. The recess ended, and everyone returned to the courtroom. I sat quietly, praying Daniel would come to his senses. But when he walked back in, there was something reckless in his eyes, the kind of look that says, if I'm falling, I'm taking everyone with me. The judge resumed the session. Mr. Carter, do you wish to proceed with your challenge? Daniel stood slowly. No, Your Honor, I wish to withdraw my claim. The courtroom gasped. Even Martin looked surprised. But Daniel wasn't done. However, he continued, I have evidence that my father was manipulated into creating this trust. I want that on record. Martin immediately objected. Your Honor, that's absurd. Mr. Carter has no such evidence. Daniel smirked. Don't I? He pulled out his phone and played an audio clip, a recording of Richard's voice, faint but recognizable, discussing business decisions. At first, it sounded damning until Martin asked to inspect it. He listened closely, then smiled faintly. Your Honor, this is clearly doctored audio. We can prove it with forensic verification. Daniel's composure cracked. You're lying. The judge sighed heavily. Mr. Carter, I've seen enough. This case is dismissed. Mrs. Carter retains full control as executor and trustee, and given the evidence of forgery, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for review. Daniel's lawyer sank back into his chair, defeated. Daniel's fists clenched at his sides, but he said nothing. When the session ended, I walked past him quietly. It didn't have to end this way. I whispered. He didn't look at me. He just stared straight ahead, face pale, eyes empty. Outside, Lily was waiting. She ran to me, hugging me tightly. You did it, Mom. It's over. I smiled through tears. No, honey. It's just beginning. We're rebuilding now from honesty, not greed. Martin joined us outside, handing me a final envelope. Richard wanted this opened after everything was resolved. I opened it right there on the courthouse steps. Inside was a handwritten note. If you're reading this, Mary, it means you've faced the hardest test of all, choosing truth over love. You did what I hoped you would. Protect what's right, even when it hurts. Give Lily her share when the time is right. As for Daniel, forgive him if you can. Tears filled my eyes. Richard had known. He'd seen the future more clearly than any of us. The call came just after midnight. The officer on the other end spoke calmly, but every word felt like a hammer hitting my chest. Mrs. Carter, this is Officer Reynolds. Your son, Daniel Carter, has been taken into custody. We found evidence of document tampering and attempted fraud. We'll need you to come in tomorrow for a statement. I couldn't speak at first. The silence stretched until the officer gently said, Ma'am, I understand, I whispered. When I hung up, I just sat there, clutching the phone. My heart felt like it had aged 100 years in a single night. Lily came into the study, sleepy, eyed but alert. Mom, who was that? I swallowed hard. The police, it's Daniel. He's been arrested. She froze, covering her mouth. Oh my God. I nodded, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. I never wanted it to come to this. Lily sat beside me, holding my hand. Mom, you didn't do this to him. He did it to himself. You tried to help him even when he pushed you away. Her words were kind, but they didn't ease the ache. I kept seeing Daniel as a boy again, chasing butterflies in the garden, bringing me Mother's Day cards with crooked handwriting, telling me I was his best friend forever. Where had that little boy gone? The next morning, I went to the station. Seeing him behind that glass window broke me all over again. His eyes were hollow, his shoulders slumped. The fire that once burned in him, the arrogance, the pride had dimmed. Mom, he said softly through the intercom. Daniel, I whispered, I didn't think it would go this far. He said, I wanted what I thought I deserved. You had everything. I said quietly, you just didn't see it. He looked away, his voice cracking. Dad always said I'd run the company someday. I thought you were taking that away from me. No. I said, tears blurring my vision. I was trying to make sure you were ready to earn it. He pressed his hands against the glass. I'm sorry, Mom. I pressed mine against his, separated by that cold barrier. I forgive you. I whispered, but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. He nodded slowly, eyes wet. When I arrived at the Carter Industries boardroom, I could almost feel Richard's presence in the air, his portrait hung on the wall, watching over the room like a quiet guardian. The board members stood as I entered. Some smiled politely, others avoided my gaze, embarrassed by their past loyalty to Daniel. Martin opened the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, Mrs. Carter now holds the controlling trust and executor authority. We're here to discuss the future of Carter Industries. One of the older board members, Mr. Hensley, cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter, if I may, we've seen how things unfolded, but we believe Daniel can still be rehabilitated. Perhaps in time he could return to a lesser role. I considered it carefully. If and only if he shows true remorse and earns that trust back. This company isn't about pride or family name anymore. It's about honor. The room fell silent. Even Martin looked slightly surprised by my firmness. I continued, from now on, Carter Industries will not be a symbol of inheritance. It will be a symbol of integrity. I'll set up a foundation in Richard's name to help young entrepreneurs who remind me of the man he used to be: honest, driven, humble. There was a soft murmur of approval around the table. Then I announced something even bigger. I'm retiring as acting head. Lily will take over the trust's voting power with Martin as her advisor. Lily gasped. Mom, I can't, you can. I interrupted gently. You're strong, and you understand the value of what's right. You've earned this not through greed, but through patience. The board applauded. Martin smiled proudly. Richard would be proud, Mary, he said. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. I hope so. After the meeting, I went to Richard's office, untouched since his passing. Dust motes floated through the morning light, landing softly on the leather chair he once sat in. I placed a framed photo of the three of us, Richard, Daniel, and Lily, on the desk. We made it, love. I whispered. It was messy, painful, but we made it. He stood there for a long moment, unsure if he should come in. His eyes were red, his voice low. They let me out until trial. He said. I nodded. I know. I wanted to see Dad's office one more time. He said softly. I remember sitting here, watching him work. He used to say, if you ever lose your way, son, look for the truth, it's always in the light. I smiled sadly. He said that to me too. Daniel looked around the room. I lost the light, Mom. I let money blind me. You can still find it again. I said. He looked at me, eyes shining. Would you ever trust me again? Trust. I said gently, isn't something you demand, it's something you rebuild, piece by piece. You've hurt people, Daniel. You need to fix that. Not for me, for yourself. He nodded, tears spilling freely now. I'll try, I promise. I stepped forward and hugged him. For a moment, I felt the same warmth I'd felt years ago, before the lies, before the greed. My son, not the man chasing money, but the boy who once believed love was enough. As he left, I looked at Richard's photo once more. You were right. I whispered, Love can bend, but it doesn't break. Weeks passed. The charges against Daniel were reduced after he cooperated with investigators, returning the stolen funds and confessing everything. The judge sentenced him to community service and counseling. It wasn't an easy road, but it was a just one. Lily thrived in her new role. The company grew stronger than ever, built on honesty instead of legacy. And me, I found peace. Sometimes when I sit by the window with my tea, I think back to the night I opened Richard's final letter. His last words echo in my mind even now. Respect matters more than money, and now they know it too. I smile every time I remember those words. Because he was right. In the end, Daniel didn't lose everything. He lost his arrogance. And I didn't lose my son. I just had to help him find his way back. The world may measure inheritance in dollars, but I've learned the real inheritance is wisdom, and that's something no one can ever steal. Respect matters more than money, and now they know it too.